Humans were taught history as a perfect ladder. This ladder goes from apes to stone tools, then from stone to bronze, then from bronze to smartphones. But what if I prove to you that this ladder is broken? In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you something astonishing. A 2,000-year-old analog computer. This computer has complex gears. Science says gears like these were only invented in the 18th century. You will see electric batteries found in tombs in the Baghdad desert. You will see 200-ton blocks. These blocks appear to have been melted like clay. You will see a medieval book that no CIA supercomputer has been able to translate. But none of this compares to what I've saved for the end of this video. And though I'm going to show physical proof of something impossible, a high-purity cast iron hammer. This hammer is perfectly embedded in solid rock. The rock dates back to the Cretaceous period. That's right, a 140-million-year-old iron hammer. From the era when dinosaurs ruled the earth, these objects are not legends. They are in museums right now. They challenge physicists and archaeologists. Many prefer to call them coincidence or fraud. They avoid admitting that our species suffers from collective amnesia. Humanity has been at the top before, and then fell. If you prefer uncomfortable truth over textbook lies, subscribe now. I'm not here to give spoon-fed answers. I am here to show what archaeology hides in the basement. If your mind isn't blown at the end, you can unsubscribe, but I doubt you will manage. Prepare yourself now. What you're about to see is the glitch in the matrix of our own history, the Hammer of London, the Cretaceous intruder. If the Greek computer breaks the history of engineering, the London hammer breaks the entire field of geology. In 1936 in Texas, a family found a piece of fossilized wood protruding from a rock. When they broke the stone, they found a cast iron hammer. At first glance, it looks like a common 19th century carpenter's tool. The problem begins when you analyze the rock in which it was embedded. That geological formation belongs to the Cretaceous period. It is dated to approximately 140 million years ago. Conventional science tries to dismiss this by saying that the hammer fell into a fissure. They claim minerals dissolved and hardened around it in a rapid process called concretion. It seems like a logical explanation until you take the hammer to the laboratory. The metal of this hammer is composed of 96% pure iron. It contains 2.6% chlorine and 0.74% sulfur. There are no air bubbles in the casting. Today, even with our modern furnaces and vacuum technology, it is almost impossible to produce an iron alloy with this level of purity. Impurities like silicon or carbon always appear in modern production. Furthermore, the metal does not rust. Since being removed from the rock nearly 90 years ago, it has not shown a single spot of oxidation. If we accept the dating of the rock, humans were manufacturing high-tech tools in the time of the dinosaurs. If we accept that the hammer is modern, we have to explain how it fused molecularly to a rock millions of years old so perfectly. The existence of this hammer suggests two possibilities that academia hates to consider. Possibility 1. Our geological timescale is completely wrong. The Earth is much younger than we think. Possibility 2. Humans, or something like us, were already walking here and mastering heavy metallurgy at a time when, theoretically, mammals hadn't even evolved properly. It is an out-of-place artifact. Science prefers to call it a fraud, rather than admit it does not understand the past of its own planet. The batteries of Baghdad, the spark of antiquity. Imagine the Iraqi desert. It is the year 1936. Archaeologists discover clay vessels. The vessels are 15 centimeters tall. The vessels are dated to the Parthian period, that is around 250 BC. Inside each vessel, there is a copper cylinder. Inside each vessel, there is an iron rod. The top was sealed with bitumen. Bitumen is the asphalt of antiquity. To the untrained eye, it looks like just a storage pot. But for Wilhelm Koenig, the archaeologist who examined the pieces, it had an unmistakable structure. It was a primary galvanic cell. Basically, it was a battery. Proper archaeology claims these vessels stored papyrus scrolls. The scrolls supposedly decayed over time. But this theory falls apart when you make an exact replica. You fill the vessel with a common electrolyte. You can use vinegar. You can use lemon juice, or even wine. This produces a chemical reaction, or The reaction is between copper and iron. It generates an electric current of up to 2 volts. Connecting 10 of these pots in series produces enough voltage to light a small lamp, or, more likely, it allows you to perform electroplating. Electroplating deposits gold or silver on metal. The layer is ultra-thin. Curiously, many Mesopotamian objects had gold layers so thin they could not have been applied with heat or manual adhesion. 2,000 years before Benjamin Franklin or Alessandro Volta created the first battery, the desert peoples already mastered electrochemistry. They knew how to manipulate electrons. They used this knowledge for industrial purposes. They used this knowledge for artistic purposes. Why did we stop using this knowledge? Imagine the Roman Empire. If they had used electricity for lighting, if they had used electricity for communication. The existence of these batteries proves that technological knowledge is not a straight line, it is a flame. If the flame is not fueled, it goes out. It leaves humanity in darkness for centuries. It forces us to reinvent the wheel repeatedly. Puma Punku, the giant diorite Lego. If you want to see where official archaeology short circuits, you need to look at the ruins of Puma Punku in Bolivia, located at nearly 13,000 feet above sea level. This temple complex is not made of bricks or ordinary stone. It is built from massive blocks of granite and diorite. To give you an idea, diorite is one of the hardest stones on Earth. It is second only to diamond. Trying to cut diorite with bronze or copper tools, which is what pre-Incan cultures supposedly had, is like trying to cut a steak with a plastic spoon. The spoon breaks. The meat doesn't even move. But in Puma Punku, the blocks have perfectly straight cuts, perfect right angles. There are grooves, just a few millimeters deep, running in absolute straight lines, across meters of solid rock. Even more impressive are the H-shaped blocks. They are identical, every single one, with precision down to fractions of a millimeter. This is not manual work. This is prefabrication. This is mass production. Shakarer, when you try to fit one block into another, the seal is so perfect that air is pushed out and the stones lock together by vacuum. No mortar, no cement. Kajuri, this is modular engineering that would make a modern architect sweat, even with CNC machines and high-powered lasers. The official explanation says they ground the stone, using other stones and sand as an abrasive. Honestly, try drilling a perfect hole, deep and perfectly circular, into granite, using sand and a wooden stick. It would take decades to make a single hole. At Puma Punku, there are hundreds of precision holes, perfectly aligned, as if made by an industrial drill. And there's more. How did they transport 130-ton blocks up a mountain in thin air, where trees barely grow, to make wooden rollers? The math doesn't work. Either these builders had access to cutting technology based on vibration or heat that we lost, or the timeline of who lived in the Andes needs to be thrown out and rewritten from scratch. Sacsayhuaman, the enigma of melted stones, still in the Andes, but now in Cusco, in Peru, Samaha. We find the walls of Sacsayhuaman. At first glance, it looks like just another Inca construction. But get closer, look at the size of the stones at the base. Some of them weigh more than 200 tons. If that's the equivalent of about 150 cars stacked into a single block. And they are not square. They have bizarre polygonal shapes. 12 faces, 13 faces, even 20 different faces. And they all fit together like a three-dimensional puzzle. Organic. What's most disturbing is not just the weight, it's the interface between the stones. You cannot fit a razor blade or even a strand of hair between two 100-ton blocks. They are fused. Look closely at the surface texture. The stones appear to have been vitrified. There is a theory, supported by independent researchers, but ridiculed by academia, that the ancients had a technology to soften rock. Imagine this, a chemical compound derived from plants, or a massive solar concentrator capable of heating stone until it behaves like clay for a few minutes. That would explain how they shaped massive blocks to perfectly match the irregular surfaces of neighboring stones. Archaeology insists that thousands of workers dragged these stones with ropes and carved them through trial and error. Think logically. You lift a 100-ton stone, it doesn't fit. You lower it again, you scrape a bit of granite, you lift it again, and repeat this process hundreds of times for a single block. It is a logistical impossibility. The efficiency of this construction suggests something else, a technique that ignored the hardness of stone. At some point in our history, we knew how to manipulate raw matter in a way that modern physics is still trying to understand. Inside materials science laboratories, the Voynich manuscript, the code from another world. We leave the stone behind and step into paper. The Voynich manuscript is without a doubt the most mysterious book in the world. Carbon dated to the early 15th century. It consists of about 240 pages, written in an elegant script, fluid and completely unknown. This is not random scribbling. The text follows linguistic laws, like Zipf's law, which means it is not a random hoax. There is intelligence behind the words, but no CIA cryptographer, no Harvard linguist, and no artificial intelligence has managed to translate a single sentence. The book is filled with illustrations, plants that do not exist, not in Earth's botany, astronomical diagrams that match no known star map, ogre and female figures inside strange systems of pipes and green baths. Some say it is an alchemy manual. Others say it is the diary of a traveler from another dimension, or even a lost language from an isolated civilization. The way it was written, with confidence, without corrections or hesitation, suggests something disturbing. The author knew the language. They were not inventing it. They were recording something. What truly defies explanation is the complexity of the code. During World War II, the best code breakers in the world, the same ones who broke the Nazi Enigma machines, tried to decode Voynich and failed completely. More recently, deep learning systems attempted to map the text to languages like Hebrew or abbreviated Latin, but the results are inconclusive. If the manuscript is a 15th century hoax, then it is the most sophisticated hoax in human history, created by someone with knowledge of linguistic statistics that would only be discovered centuries later. Ironic, if it is not a hoax, then what we have in our hands is a record of knowledge that does not belong to our historical timeline. The Iron Pillar of Delhi, eternal metallurgy. To close this cycle of impossibilities, we travel to India, to the Qutb Minar complex. There stands an iron pillar, 7 meters tall, weighing over 6 tons. It was erected around 1,600 years ago. Anywhere else in the world, a piece of iron exposed to rain, to sun, and to pollution for 16 centuries would have turned into rust and collapsed. But the Ashoka pillar is still there, smooth, intact, without a single sign of deep corrosion. Modern scientists had become obsessed with it. How did 4th century Indian metallurgists create iron with such purity? Analysis revealed something unusual. The iron contains high phosphorus levels and almost no sulfur or magnesium. This created a protective passive layer on the surface called misawit. The problem is the technique required to produce iron with this exact chemical composition and apply this protection is extremely advanced. We only began to understand how to replicate something similar in the last century. The existence of the pillar proves that ancient metallurgy was not primitive. They had furnaces, they had knowledge, they had control over the chemistry of matter, far beyond what we were taught. They were not just village blacksmiths. They knew how to manipulate metal at a molecular level to make it last forever. And here we return to the central question. Why was this knowledge lost? Why did the world forget how to make corrosion-resistant iron for over 1,000 years until modern science rediscovered it? Human history seems to suffer from collective amnesia. We achieve the impossible. We lose everything and spend centuries trying to understand how our ancestors did what today costs billions in technology just to replicate. We like to laugh at the idea of lost civilizations because it feels safer to believe we're the peak of intelligence on Earth. It's comforting to think of progress as a ladder that only goes up. But a bronze mechanism at the bottom of the sea, a hammer fused into prehistoric rock, and iron in India that refuses to rust, these are scars on our official narrative. They are physical proof that humanity has played the technology game at elite level before, and for some reason we haven't had the guts to investigate yet. We lost everything, Whereas what separates our digital civilization from total extinction and complete oblivion isn't our knowledge, but the stability of the system where it's stored. If that system crashes tomorrow, 1,000 years from now, future archaeologists will look at our scraps of fiberglass and silicon and call them ritual objects, simply because their technology won't be capable of understanding ours. The question isn't whether advanced civilizations existed before us anymore. The question is, how long until we become the next impossible object that no one can explain? What you saw here today aren't anomalies. They're warnings. History is written by the survivors. But the truth is buried where no one wants to dig. Until the next glitch in the Matrix.